Day one, OTAs in the books. The sizzle reel is here, and it's opened with Upton Stout. And then the receivers, Mike Evans, you saw him there wearing the number 5 at the top of the drill. Dejon Stribling, part of it as well. 49ers, brand new receiving core, brand new defensive line as well. I mean, not the whole thing. Sam Okawanu, as you saw there, is a holdover. Yes, that is George Kittle working off on the side. I'm headed down to the facility right after this, and I'll have a chance to take a look at George's rehab if he's working off on the side with my own eyes. But a lot going on the field for the 49ers. Saw Jaden Duggar there as well for San Francisco. Now that's part one of the sizzle reel. The 49ers also put this up. It is Brock Purdy to Mike Evans. Get ready for a lot of that here in 2026. I want to make this as interactive as possible. I'm in downtown San Francisco now, so you can tell, back from Europe, made it safely, headed down to the facility for day 2 of OTAs. So we got that quick look in at day 1. Day 2, going to be more exciting because we're going to be able to see maybe some 11-on-11 drills that the 49ers execute. And I want to make this as interactive as possible, as I know that I haven't done a live in a few days. I've been overseas. I figured we'd wait for getting back to the U.S. for the live when there wasn't a 9-hour time difference. So we are live, and I want to answer any questions. Congratulations to Tyler. My daughter turns 2 months today. Tyler says this offseason is cruising by. So Tyler's got a daughter who is about 3 weeks older than my daughter. Tyler's daughter was born on March 28th. Congratulations to Tyler. Hopefully your daughter is watching right now. Now, probably I don't want to expose her to any screen time at this young age, but hopefully she starts watching here in the next few months. I am ready for all of your questions, or at least all of your good questions. I'm going to try to answer as many as I possibly can. And we can talk about Nick Bosa here. If Nick Bosa can get back into the Defensive Player of the Year conversation, even if he doesn't win it, be really, really good for the 49ers. This is actually part 2 of a 2-part comment. Part 1 here is I would love an all-pro season from Deommodore Lenoir and any Pro Bowl season from Renardo Green this year. I mean, that would be nice for the 49ers if they could get Deommodore Lenoir to finally overcome the Pro Bowl snub of a couple years ago and then also become an all-pro this year. Well, a lot of that is tied to Nick Bosa and the pass rush, right? The 49ers had a league-low 20 sacks last year. The cornerbacks weren't bad for the 49ers in 2025. In fact, I thought that was the strength of this defense. But you're going to have a hard time starring, making splash plays at the cornerback position if the pass rush in front of you is as weak and injured as it was for the 49ers last year. So I think a lot of Bosa's fortunes and a lot of Deommodore Lenoir and Renardo Green's fortunes go hand in hand. Now, the statistics for Deommodore Lenoir have been almost identical to Trent McDuffie's, and everybody was hyping Trent McDuffie to the Rams this past offseason. Without, mentioning that Deommodore Lenoir has been essentially just as good as Trent behind a worse pass rush. So give Demo that pass rush, and that ties into Bosa. Ties into everybody up front. Osa Odighizuwa, obviously, is a big, big addition for the 49ers along the interior defensive line. But give those DBs a pass rush, and I can promise you the statistics and the splash plays are going to look very, very difficult for them. Visalia needs a Lombardi meetup. All right, we'll have that in the works. Maybe we could try to make that happen over the course of later this summer or this fall. Obviously, right now I'm in San Francisco. By tomorrow morning, I'm going to be back in Nashville. Yesterday, I was in Prague. And, the cycle just kind of continues while I travel. I don't know when I'm going to be back in Visalia, but let's try to make it happen here over the next few months. So what exactly are the 49ers doing to Mac Jones? Well, I made the video from the plane yesterday. They're giving him a raise, $300,000 raise. They're keeping him as their backup quarterback. Why are they giving him a raise? Because he earned it with his performance last year. They're going to keep him through this next season. Then they'll either re-sign Mac, which I think is going to be really hard because I think that he's worth a lot more than $3.5 million per year, which is what he's at right now, unless he just wants to be a career backup. But I think that to be in this league, typically these guys have greater ambitions, and he's going to be at least bridge quarterback money, like starting bridge quarterback money, I would think, in 2027. So if that happens, then he'll sign somewhere else for 10 million plus and be off on his way. The 49ers wanted a first-round pick in exchange for him this year. And, they can keep that demand out there up until the trade deadline. And maybe somebody becomes desperate for a quarterback over the course of the first, 8-9 weeks of the season before the deadline and decides to send the 49ers a one. Is it likely? No. But is that a fair price for the 49ers to ask for Mac Jones? I think considering their interests, absolutely. Especially if you look at 49ers history in recent years. But just last year, Mac Jones saved the season. In 2022, they wish they would have had a Mac Jones type available. They wish they would have had Jimmy Garoppolo available for the NFC Championship game, and they probably would have won the Super Bowl that year. So depth at the quarterback position is extremely important, and the 49ers are very, very fortunate to have that depth, that quality depth in Mac Jones at a cost of only $3.55 million this year, plus potential incentives. So that's what the 49ers are doing with Mac Jones. We've got some pictures for you guys from practice, courtesy of the 49ers. So I'm going to get those up on the screen as well. But first, I'm going to ask another question. So let's see what Mike is asking a question. Who do I want to see, or what do I want to see at 49ers OTAs today? I want to see all the rookies on the field alongside almost all the veterans. I know all the vets are going to be on the practice field because of injury issues. That always seems to be something that's a reality in football. So I want to see as complete of a roster as possible on the practice field. I'm not going to pretend that OTAs mean much more than that. I mean, they're not going to be in pads today, so there's going to be overreactions for sure. It's going to be one of those things where, oh my God, I remember Trey Lance, I think, or Mac Jones. I forgot. I think it was Lance. Yeah, Lance threw a nice pass in OTAs a few years ago, and everybody thought that would mean that he's going to be the starting quarterback, or that he'd beat out Sam Darnold for the QB2 job. That kind of stuff is not determined at OTAs. And I'm sure, in this modern era of clickbait culture, people are going to look at certain things that happened today, and they're going to take tweets and they're going to pull them way out of context. They'll probably take some of my video reporting and my articles up on the San Francisco Standard out of context. That's not what I'm here for, though. That's the kind of stuff that we'll just kind of scoff at and move forward. What's important is that, at rookie minicamp, we got to see all the 49ers new players on the field, all the rookies on the field. Now the veterans, by and large, have returned, and we get to see them at the same time as the rookies, the 49ers, begin to practice together. And I think it's important. Yesterday we saw the videos from the 49ers. Big milestone today. Media is going to be there in person for the first time, seeing those two things together. And I do think that is important as well. All right, we got some of the pictures as promised. So let's get those up on the screen. These are courtesy of the 49ers. Mike went ahead and prepared some of these for us. There he is, Mr. Purdy himself at OTAs yesterday. This right here is interesting. 49ers have a lot of guys in the punt return competition. Yes, that is Kyle Juszczyk. He has long been their emergency punt returner, and he's extremely, extremely dependable. I get it. He's not going to be as explosive as a wide receiver or a defensive back or even a running back, but sometimes you just need somebody to cleanly field the punt. And Kyle Juszczyk, I guarantee you he's able to do that. I can promise you that he did not drop the punt that is photographed here. Jordan Watkins in the 17 behind Kyle Juszczyk. This is new 49ers defensive back Nate Hobbs, formerly of the Green Bay Packers. Remember, Nate signed a deal with Green Bay worth up to $48 million over 4 seasons and played only 1 season of that before they cut him. So when he came over from the Raiders, this was considered a big-time player. Now the 49ers get him at a huge, huge discount deal of only a couple $1 million. I think that he's the favorite to be the 49ers' big nickel this year. Under this guy right here, Raheem Morris, who is a DB-oriented defensive coordinator. It's an interesting change for San Francisco. In the past, they've had linebacker-oriented defensive coordinators on this football team. Robert Saleh was one of them. DeMeco Ryans was the other one of them. Nick Sorensen and Steve Wilks, I guess you could say they might have been more DB oriented for San Francisco. But out of the successful 49ers defensive coordinators, Saleh and D'Amico Ryans, there has been a linebacker focus at that spot. Now there's a DB focus from the former safety from Hofstra. And here you could see on the bottom the 49ers DBs at OTAs yesterday. Mike has Jauan Jennings in purple. My goodness, it does look weird. Let's see Jauan Jennings in purple. There's a little bit of an interview here from Jauan Jennings as well. So I'm going to get this up on the screen. Yeah, this is funny. I hadn't seen this yet. So he said that he feels like Kevin Durant on the Warriors with the current receiving core in Minnesota. And they do have a lot of talent in Minnesota, obviously. A lot of JJs in Minnesota, right? Justin Jefferson, and then there's Jordan Addison, but of course, JJ in Jauan Jennings. So anyway, brace yourselves. Here's Jauan Jennings in purple.
Oh, that's awesome. I feel like Kevin Durant, the Warriors.
Why do you say that?
Because big three, man. You know what I'm saying? There's just a lot of talent over here. It's just top down, head to bottom, a lot of talent.
It's been a while since Durant was on the Warriors. He did not overlap in the Bay Area with Jauan Jennings. That was in the late 2010s. It was from 2016 to 2018, 2019, the Kevin Durant era. Jauan Jennings drafted by San Francisco in the 7th round of 2020. And then obviously by that point, Kevin Durant was long gone. The Warriors won a title in the 2021 season. That was the most recent one they won with Steph Curry, but that was without Kevin Durant. Anyway, that's Jauan Jennings in Minnesota. 49ers are going to see him in Mexico City when they play the Vikings right ahead of Thanksgiving this year. I mean, he said he's more like Draymond. Yeah, I think I see the Draymond comparison a little bit more accurate for Jauan Jennings. Yeah, I think Jauan Jennings is like the Draymond. He was like the Draymond of the 49ers, which I mean in a very complimentary fashion, but he sure is a guy that gets under opponent's skin. He's a guy that you love to have on your team, hate when you're playing against him. 49ers are going to be on the opposite end of that when they face the Minnesota Vikings. But yeah, Jauan, not the most prolific scorer. I think he's more known actually for his dirty work in the league, the blocking, getting under opponent's skin, trying to draw penalties from everybody else. Obviously, he has put up some numbers. I don't think he's going to lead Minnesota in receiving, though, unless a lot of guys get hurt. So I think that Draymond Green might be a more apt comparison for Jauan Jennings over in Minnesota. In fact, when the 49ers were at their best, and we can talk about Dejon Stribling and Mike Evans in the receiving core, but when the 49ers were at their best, Jauan Jennings was their Draymond Green. Jauan Jennings was not their Steph Curry. I mean, they had to force him into a wide receiver one role when a lot of guys were hurt. They had to force him into that spot where he was counted on to be the big-time scorer or the big-time receiving leader. But the 49ers receiving core suffered when that was the case. The last 2 seasons, they've been near the bottom in terms of average separation at the time of catch. They've been near the bottom in terms of speed of their skill position players. Jauan Jennings, when he was the 3 for San Francisco, and he's going to be the wide receiver 3 in Minnesota, that's when the 49ers excelled on offense, because the 3 is not going to be counted on to be the featured guy that has to beat the best cornerback, draw safety help, stretch the field with his speed, separate, do all this stuff. The 3 gets the work against safeties, against nickel backs. Jauan Jennings had a size advantage over the nickels. He typically had a speed and separation advantage over the safeties. He is not the main focal point of the offense like the X wide receiver is. But when Jennings had to play the X, things got a whole lot more complicated and constricted for the 49ers. And that's why Mike Evans is now part of the 49ers picture, because the 49ers have needed exactly this. They have needed Purdy to Evans. They have needed an X wide receiver who has supreme contested catch ability, who is a magnet for opposing safeties, who, is somebody like, we know that Evans can do it all, right? He's a future Hall of Famer. Somebody who becomes a focal point gravitationally of the offense, a Steph Curry, if you will, so that the rest of the positions can operate with more room on the field. And the 49ers had that with a healthy Brandon Ayuk. And then Brandon Ayuk fell off the radar. We can talk about that all we want, and we have. I know a lot of people prefer when we don't, so we won't here. But once Brandon Ayuk fell off the radar, a massive, massive piece of the 49ers offense, that gravitational X wide receiver position, was no more. And San Francisco and Brock Purdy have had to fight in an uphill battle ever since. Now you've got Evans, and what's really exciting is I think you've got a potential understudy in Deommodore Stribling. Now, Dejon is going to play Jauan's position. So third and Jauan, third and Dejon for the time being. He's going to be that big slot. But I don't know if Mike Evans will be with the 49ers for 1 year, 2 years, 3 years. He's going to be 33 years old this year. In the future, you need that big and fast body to play that X wide receiver role. That is that gravitational force. So I think that you can have Deommodore Stribling playing the big slot, splitting time with Christian Kirk, who's more of a small slot, but they're the wide receiver 3. He can learn from Christian Kirk while he simultaneously learns the X from Mike Evans. And the 49ers have a setup, and this is how Kyle Shanahan loves the receiver position to work, where the receivers have to be cross-trained and they have to play every single position anyway. So the learning curve involves multidimensional lessons. So to have Kirk in there to teach Stribling the slot and to have Kirk in there to teach Evans the X simultaneously, I think is great for the 49ers near term when they're lining receivers up everywhere to keep defenses off balance. And the long term, when you think Mike Evans retires, Mike Evans leaves, Deommodore Stribling is a candidate to be a long-term X for the 49ers. All right, I'm back into the comments section. Was Jauan Jennings asking for wide receiver 1 money? He was asking for $20 million plus a year. He was asking for very solid wide receiver 2 money, like high-end wide receiver 2 money. Wide receiver 1 money is now $30 million, right? That's what Brandon Ayuk got, the ex-wide receiver for the 49ers. So he wasn't asking for wide receiver 1 money, but he was asking for wide receiver 2 money, and the 49ers had him as a wide receiver 3 in their structure. It's just how the situation worked out for San Francisco. They just look at the 49ers structure, right? The pay structure, the roster structure. They signed Brandon Ayuk for $30 million a year to be their wide receiver 1. They signed Ayuk in the same season that they used a first-round draft pick on Ricky Pearsall to be their wide receiver 2. Ayuk was supposed to be the X. Pearsall was supposed to be the Z. They also re-signed Jennings to a smaller deal that was worth, what, like $6 to $8 million a year to be their 3 that year. What happened, there was this domino effect of crap that happened for the 49ers, but Ayuk tore the ACL. Pearsall got shot in the chest. And then Jennings, who had been signed to a smaller contract to be wide receiver 3, had to graduate up to wide receiver 1 in 2024. So then Jennings wanted a compromise. He didn't want wide receiver 1 money. That would have been unreasonable, and 49ers wouldn't have been able to pay it. He didn't want $30 million, but he wanted something in between the $6 to $8 million and the $30 million that Brandon Ayuk got, because he almost had 1,000 receiving yards. He wanted 20 plus, but that wasn't in the 49ers structure because A, they had guaranteed a lot of money to Brandon Ayuk. B, Ricky Pearsall was on the team, and they said, no, we got to, we think of you as a high-end wide receiver 3. Our structure for you, we could stretch this up to about $17 million. You're worth enough to this team, and we've had enough injury issues on this team that you're worth up to $17 million. Jauan said no and bet on himself, and I don't think that bet really paid off. Now, he's in a good situation with Minnesota, but he's not making $17 million. I think the contract's worth up to $13 million per year. So where the 49ers are now is that they've replaced Jauan Jennings temporarily with Deommodore Stribling for much less than the $13 million a year that Jennings commanded from Minnesota, or even the $17 million a year that the 49ers offered Jennings. They're counting on Ricky Pearsall to take the next step on his rookie contract. And they have signed Brandon Ayuk to solve the vacancy at the X receiver position left behind by the defection of Brandon Ayuk. So the receiver room looks completely different for the 49ers right now. It's a tough situation for Jauan Jennings. I always thought that Jauan was a really cool guy. He was really cool to me over the years. I would always go to his football camp over in Murfreesboro and in Tennessee. And he was a great teammate for the 49ers. And, a lot of people are critical over these monetary situations for players. The Jauan Jennings situation was so unique because it came on the heels of Brandon Ayuk getting paid and then busting for the 49ers, right? I mean, that whole situation was not a good one. And Jennings delivered that, I'll just call it 1,000-yard season in 2024 because he was unjustly ejected from that finale at Arizona. Jennings delivered that monster 2024 season being paid pennies compared to what Brandon Ayuk had signed for. And he actually showed up while Ayuk didn't show up. So you can see why Jauan was trying to make up for lost time. He wanted more money. He's like, I actually delivered for you guys. This guy Ayuk didn't. I don't know if he actually said that, but that was the obvious subtext here. You guys paid the wrong receiver in essence. But while that stance made sense to a degree from Jennings' perspective, it was always an apples and oranges situation because Ayuk played the X naturally. He was a natural X wide receiver, while the 49ers never saw, rightfully so, they never saw Jauan Jennings as a natural X. He was forced into the important X receiver role, and that's the only one that you can afford to pay that much money. Now, the big miracle of all of this for the 49ers is that I'm playing the wrong reel right now. I got to play the right reel. The big miracle for all of this is that this guy right here, Mike Evans, is coming in at like $14 million a year on a deal that's heavily incentive based. So whereas it was Ayuk at $30 million a year and all this and all that, now you get Evans at the very, very affordable rate of $14 million a year. So it's totally balanced out the 49ers financial structure and situation. I think that they're very, very happy about that. So right now I'm at the Hyatt Regency. I got the San Francisco apartment. We're going to be in Russian Hill this year. Shout out to everybody there, but I'm not going to be moving in there until next month. And I'm going back to Nashville today, but I have to see when the train goes because I'm taking the train down to Levi's today. A lot easier to do that. And so I'm looking up some directions here to Levi's Stadium. So I cut out this live in time and make it down to Embarcadero Station to get on that train. All right, when are we leaving here? Train departs at, I could take the one at 10:09. Ooh, that's not bad. I think 10:09 is good because it will get me there at 11:45 and practice is at 12:30, and it obviously would be nice in case there are any delays. Yeah, 10:09 would be a good time to hop on this train, unless we get a surge of more viewers, and then I'll try to risk it with the next train. We got a George Kittle update. 49ers also posted this of Kittle. Oh, well, this was part of what I already showed a little bit earlier, but Mike wants me to show it, so I will. Let's get this up on the screen from Mike. So it looks like Kittle is pushing a sled here as he's going crazy for the camera, but he's about to push a sled there. They're not going to include that part at the very end. Right there. The sled push is happening. We saw Kittle without long pants on. He had shorts on in Vegas, right? And obviously is skinnier right now. He's obviously lost weight because he hadn't been able to lift his lower body due to the Achilles injury. He's going to need to add bulk onto the lower body. The fact that he's doing sled pushes, as that video seems to indicate, means that he is back fully in the strengthening phase. Most of rehab, people don't realize this, most of rehab, the reason that it takes 9+ months to come back from an Achilles is strengthening, putting the muscle back on. These guys do not play at natural weights. Like George Kittle, if he was a normal dude, would probably be around 200 pounds, right? He'd be a tall, lankier guy. That's how George Kittle is built. That's what his genetics are for. But the guy is an NFL player. he works on his body obsessively, and he's at about 240 instead. He's muscled up, right? It takes a lot of maintenance to maintain 240 pounds of muscle. So whenever George Kittle has a surgery, it happened a couple years ago, and the core muscle surgery happened this offseason when he had the Achilles surgery. That weight drops down. 2 years ago, he dropped down to 214 pounds over the course of the offseason. The vast majority of that 9-month window coming off the Achilles is dedicated to re-adding the muscle that has been lost. Okay, so that's the story with George Kittle right now, and I do think that he, on the sled, I think that is good news as far as the prognosis of recovery goes. How's Dre Greenlaw doing? Dre Greenlaw is doing well. I think Dre's healthy right now, which is really, really important. Now the 49ers would like that to stay in place over the course of this 2026 season. Deebo reunion odds, not very high. I don't think they ever have been very high for the 49ers. That receiver room, they got a lot of bodies in that receiver room now, and they've definitely focused on upgrading the speed of the room. That's something I'm not necessarily sure that re-signing Deebo Samuel would do. All right, guys, I'm going to hop on the train. I think 26 minutes sounds about right. Train is going in 12 minutes. I got to pack up the camera. Do you guys think I'll make it? That way I'll be at OTAs on time for sure, even if the train is a little bit delayed. Hit that subscribe button. We answered a bunch of your questions. Appreciate you all. We'll talk to you very, very soon.